At first glance, this just looks like another old house, but nearly 200 years ago, this was home for British families living on the edge of the world. Far from England, they faced isolation, relentless weather, ambition and tragedy. Today, we're stepping inside Highfield to discover what life was really like here nearly 200 years ago, and whether it's worth adding to your Tasmania itinerary.
Highfield has had numerous owners throughout the last couple of hundred years. It was built in the early 1800s, but it's now owned by the Tasmanian government and it's a tourist operation. The cost to get in is $15 per adult, but you can come as a family of 4 and it only costs you $35. Absolute bargain.
Standing here today, it's hard to imagine just how isolated this place once was. When Highfield was built in the early 1830s, this wasn't a tourist destination. It was the headquarters of the Van Diemen's Land Company, established by British investors who hoped to build a thriving farming enterprise in this part of Tasmania. Imagine arriving here after months at sea. England was half a world away. Everything familiar was gone. Yet somehow this became home, and standing here on a windy day, you get a real sense of what they must have experienced. The weather on Tasmania's northwest coast can be relentless, beautiful but unforgiving. Walking through the front door, you're immediately struck by how grand everything feels. Rather than building a simple farmhouse, they recreated an English country home. High ceilings, large windows, formal rooms, elegant furniture. It's almost as though they were trying to bring a little piece of England with them. But behind the elegance is another story. Much of Highfield was built by convict labour. The craftsmanship is remarkable, and almost 200 years later, it's still standing. This room would have welcomed important visitors and business guests. Remember, this wasn't simply a family home. Major decisions about the company's operations would have been made here. It's strange to think that while these rooms look peaceful today, they were once filled with conversations about building a new future in one of the most remote parts of the colony. Imagine dinner here, candles lighting the room, the wind outside, news from England arriving months late, no phones, no internet, no quick trip into town. Life moved at a completely different pace. The kitchen reminds you just how much work daily life involved. Every meal was prepared over an open fire. Everything took longer. Cooking, cleaning, washing. Simple tasks we barely think about today would have occupied hours of every day. It's easy to admire the furniture. This was a real family home. Edward Curr and his wife Elizabeth raised 15 children here. Imagine the laughter, the noise, the chaos. But there was heartbreak too. Their young daughter Julia tragically died at just 2 years of age. Standing in these quiet rooms today, it's a reminder that history isn't just about buildings, it's about people. One story I found particularly moving involves Henry Hellyer. He was the surveyor who designed Highfield, but he never saw it completed. Before construction finished, he tragically took his own life. As beautiful as this house is, it's also connected to stories of ambition that didn't always end happily. One of my favourite parts of visiting Highfield is simply stopping to take in the view. You can understand why they chose this location. From here they could look across their land towards Stanley and the Nut. Today it's peaceful, almost timeless. But 2 centuries ago, this landscape represented hope, uncertainty, and the enormous challenge of building a new life so far from home. Highfield isn't just another historic house, it's a glimpse into what life was really like for people who left everything behind to start again in colonial Tasmania. Some found success, some experienced unimaginable loss, and all of them lived in one of the most remote corners of the British Empire. If you're visiting Stanley or exploring Tasmania's northwest coast, I think Highfield is absolutely worth adding to your itinerary, not simply because it's beautiful, but because every room tells part of a much bigger story. If you visited Highfield yourself, I'd love to hear what stood out to you in the comments. And if you're planning a trip around Tasmania, don't forget to subscribe for more honest travel guides and hidden gems from around the island.
Well, that concludes our tour of Stanley and Highfield Historic Site. What did you think? Let us know in the comments. I'd love to know.